Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Mary and I have a comprehensive list for you guys today. I want to talk about some of the most sustainable fabrics, materials for clothing out there. It's nice to have an overview of these sorts of things. I'm also going to leave a blog post down below with everything we're talking about in this video. It's going to be in the blog post as well. And I can also update the blog post as I go along. Yeehaw. I'm going to share which materials, which fabrics are the most sustainable. In the end, I'm going to share a few ambiguous fabrics that can be super sustainable, but aren't inherently so. So let's get into it. First of all, we have recycled cotton. 765,000 liters of water can be saved per ton of recycled cotton we use rather than virgin cotton, new cotton, etc. There's a lot of resources to be gained from recycling cotton materials. That's because the biggest issue with cotton today lies within the supply chain and not within the usage of the material. The impact comes primarily from water usage, land usage, and fertilizer. And in comparison, the way that we use cotton, the way it's worn over time, that's not where the majority of the impact lies. A good thing about any cotton material is that it's usually rather easy to compost and can also easily be repaired. Because the biggest impact of cotton lies within the production of it, using recycled cotton will significantly lessen the impact of any type of garment. So whenever I see recycled cotton, I'm happy. Or I should say, whenever I see 100% recycled cotton, I am happy. A lot of fast fashion brands are catching on to the fact that consumers want more sustainable fabrics. And the keyword recycled is something that we see being used in greenwashing campaigns all the time. I am so tired. So often I've stumbled across clothing that's been advertised as made from recycled materials, and when you looked at how much recycled materials was actually in the clothing, it was between like 10 to 20%, which does not have the same amazing positive impact. And also, even though you're looking at recycled materials, there is still a lot of things in the supply chain that of course needs to be up to par. So looking for certificates is still a really good idea. I have a whole certificate guide and one specifically about cotton as well. So I will leave that down below. Now we're gonna stay with cotton for a little while because I also want to talk about organic cotton. Only 0.7% of the world's cotton production is actually organic. So there's a lot of room for improvement here. Cotton is the biggest non-food cultivated crop we have in the world, and it's using the majority of insecticides and pesticides, which is really harmful to natural environments and to the people that work on the cotton farms. As we have also established already, cotton production also uses massive amounts of water. However, organic cotton production is significantly more sustainable. It doesn't tire out the soil in the same way. Many sustainable cotton farms uses soil rotation and sustainable farming practices, and no synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, etc. When looking for organic cotton clothing, I can really recommend looking for the GOTS certification. GOTS stands for Organic Cotton Textile Standard, and it is by far the best one. When someone is certified with GOTS, you can go back all the way through their supply chains and see everything. We love to see it. Again, I will leave my certification guide down below where I'm talking more about how you get certified with the GOTS. Okay, now a fabric I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time and a lot of people have asked me about is linen. Linen is made from flax, and it can grow in really poor quality soils, aka in places where you might not be able to grow cotton. Generally, linen production requires less resources than cotton and up to 60% less water. For shirts, trousers, etc., it's a really, really cool material. And it's actually so low impact that even the non-organic linen production is still more sustainable than cotton. Another material I've been asked about a million times is hemp, and I'm so excited to talk about it. So hemp is a really cool material. While the entirety of the plant is still very stigmatized, using hemp in clothing production is really sustainable because you can grow twice the amount of material you need for clothing on the same space with hemp as you could cotton. So there's a lot to be gained there. A cool thing about hemp is that the plant itself refertilizes its own soil, so the soil is not completely derived of nutrients and exhausted from production. And that we love to see. Both hemp and linen are really good alternatives to cotton in many, many cases. And if you can get your hands on any of these materials as an alternative to cotton, that is overall, on average, generally more sustainable. Now, Tencel. Fun fact, Tencel is not the name of a material, it's a product name, it's a brand name. Tencel is a specific type of lyocell, a semi-synthetic material that was developed by the company called Lenzig. So whenever you see something called Tencel, that means that it came from this specific company. Kind of like Kleenex. So in many ways, Tencel have the same qualities as other types of semi-synthetic fabrics like viscose, rayon, lyocell. I call them semi-synthetics because they're technically based on natural materials, but the process they're going through isn't necessarily natural and isn't naturally occurring, so to speak. Very few processes are naturally occurring, but they are overall categorized as semi-synthetics. And some of the issues with creating semi-synthetic materials is that you're taking something that's really hard, like wood pulp, and then you're turning it into a really soft material. And overall, that requires really harsh chemicals to achieve that result. The cool thing about Tencel, however, is that that process takes place in a closed loop system, so both water and chemicals are being constantly used in the same loop, rather than having those chemicals constantly flushed out into wastewater systems, which is something that happens in fast fashion all the time. It's really unsustainable and it's really dangerous to people because drinking water, but also generally to our environment, to our microorganisms, to our flora and fauna, just flushing out chemicals is a very bad idea. However, that doesn't happen with Tencel, which is pretty cool. Another material that perhaps some of you haven't heard about is Cupro. This is made from cotton waste materials. It's an artificial cellulose product that's made from cotton waste, and in many ways it reacts in the same way as Tencel, and it's also produced in a closed loop system that recycles both water and chemicals, and we love to see it. And the really cool thing about using a waste product is that you are not taking up any land space to grow material to turn into garments. And that we love to see. That significantly lowers its impact. Another material from the future. I don't know if it's from the future. We're gonna see a lot more of it in the future. I haven't seen a whole bunch of it now, but it's really cool. And it's a linen type material made from stinging nettle. It has all the same qualities as linen, sort of the same feel, and also the same impact, so significantly more sustainable than cotton. And what we really need to in order to sort of lower the impact of garment production in general, other than, you know, restrictions for factories, environmental restrictions, fair workers' pay, is finding good alternatives to the conventional cotton production, because that, oh, how that is unsustainable. So yeah, I hope to see more stinging nettle-based garments in the future. And lastly, before moving into the ambiguous, maybe they're sustainable, maybe they're not, I also want to include natural rubber. So most rubber today is made synthetically from petroleum-based materials, aka plastic. But that is significantly different from natural rubber and how that's produced. Natural rubber is made from the milk from the hevea tree. Hevea? And actually harvesting the milk from the tree benefits the tree as well. It is a renewable resource, it is biodegradable and significantly more sustainable than petroleum-based materials. Here's some fabrics that can be super sustainable, but aren't necessarily. So something I would be cautious of, I would look into a little bit more. First of all, we have bamboo. I have talked in length about bamboo. I actually have 2 whole videos about bamboo. First, an impact video about the material and how it's used and etc. And then I have another video specifically and only about bamboo clothing. So go and check those out if you want more details. I'm just gonna do like a really brief and then watch that video if you want all the deeds. Bamboo is a really cool plant. It's actually a type of grass, and it can grow in places where basically nothing else can grow. It doesn't really require pesticides, very few in general. Overall, it doesn't, and it requires less water, less land usage. It's really cool. However, most bamboo today has supply chains that are incredibly untransparent. And even though bamboo has these really cool qualities and potential for being sustainable, it's very rarely taken advantage of. So many farmers still cut down trees to make room for bamboo production. Many farmers still use tons of pesticides, even though they don't necessarily need to. And next comes garment production. So the thing I just mentioned about how semi-synthetics can be kind of unsustainable because they're using a lot of chemicals to become super soft and processed. Yeah, I'm talking about bamboo in this case as well. That is lumped in there as well. So bamboo clothing production often uses a lot of chemicals. Not always but a lot of the time. And because these supply chains are still untransparent, it can be difficult to figure out if the bamboo garment you are holding in your hands is one of the good ones or one of the less good ones, which is a problem. Bamboo clothing, even though it's advertised as it's made from bamboo clothing, a more correct way of putting it is that it's bamboo based. It's viscose. It's a bamboo based viscose, just like you can have like a wood based viscose. And I feel like a lot of the time some companies really like to focus on the bamboo part because bamboo right now has a kind of a good reputation. I do feel that is shifting a little bit, but not everywhere. So focusing on the fact that this is made from bamboo is really important for their marketing, when in fact bamboo plays a really small part of the garment and its impact in general. Again, it isn't inherently sustainable, but it can be. The next one, I don't know, I might make some people mad, I am sorry, but one of the ambiguous ones, one of the ones that can be good, but isn't always at all, is recycled polyester and nylon, and also clothing made from ocean plastic. While the production impact of using recycled nylon, polyester, and other types of petroleum-based garments is lower than if you were to use virgin materials, the upsides to the production also basically stops there. You see the same overall issues with recycled polyester, recycled nylon as you see with new virgin materials, and it's that microplastic ends up everywhere. You release microplastic when you wash the garments, when you wear the garments. They're basically impossible to repair, and when they end up in landfill, they will stay there forever. Arguably, anything that ends up in landfill will stay there forever. Also cotton, because nothing can break down in a landfill, but I digress. And the thing is, a lot of the brands that put out recycled polyester, recycled nylon, do not have any return systems in place to make sure that the products they're putting out into the world can be recycled again. And if they do, they are rarely efficient. I'm looking at you, H&M. And often they don't even recycle these things in-house, but they are outsourced to a fourth party to do so. H&M only recycles less than 1% of the clothing that's donated to them, so just... okay. And there are so many examples of brands that market their products as made from ocean plastic when there are absolutely no evidence to support that claim. And you know, even when garments are made from ocean plastic, that isn't still inherently good. So a lot of the time, and this is just a general beef that I have with that whole recycling scheme, but a lot of the time, it's often advertised how super easy it is to take plastic from the ocean and turn it into garments. And we have so much plastic in our oceans. I do love to see when it happens. It's just that it's not as easy as so many of these companies make it seem. So a lot of the plastic that is floating around in our oceans today is super brittle. It's mixed materials, and those can't really be made into new things. You can't really work with them. You have to add virgin plastic in order simply to just melt it down. So what can happen is that you take ocean plastic and you mix it with new plastic, and then ta-da, you have recycled ocean plastic garment. Or you spend a lot of resources collecting a lot of trash, sorting through it, picking apart the things that you want, and that takes a lot of resources to do. At this point in time, it's more expensive to pick out ocean plastic than it is to use virgin materials, which is wild. Anyway, my point is here that this isn't necessarily a transparent, ethical, or even sustainable practice. It can be, but it isn't always. So what I do as a consumer, what I think everyone should do as a consumer, is look for certification, is looking for transparency, is looking for any kind of communication that indicates that the work here is actually being done the way that they're advertising it. And also generally just be really critical of super vague claims. Check out my greenwashing videos. I also just know for a fact that this is going to be a little bit of a hot potato, but I also want to talk about wool. Wool has a relatively low impact, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all farming practices involving wool are sustainable. Far from, actually. There are some organic farmers that are doing a better job, but overall there's still room for improvement. And also there isn't a lot of certified wool on the market at this point. Some of the upsides of wool is that it's a renewable resource, it's antibacterial, it's also biodegradable. We love to see it, but there are also downsides. Non-organic wool uses pesticides on pasture lands, which is definitely not eco-friendly. Some farmers also use really unethical farming practices and methods when maintaining their livestock. And then there's the overall issue of the fact that humans have bred certain types of sheep into an existence where they are dependent on human maintenance in order to simply survive, because they produce so much wool, so much more so than they would naturally have done. And that's also an issue. In comparison to materials like leather, wool has a much more rosy image because, you know, leather is made from animal skin, so the animal has to be dead. But because animals don't die from wool production, it feels often like they live in this symbiotic relationship with the farmers where they're all helping each other out. Not really, but that rosy image definitely breaks apart a little bit when you learn that the wool industry and the meat industry is tightly connected. When sheep stop producing the quality of wool that the farmer needs it to do, they are being slaughtered. I do buy vintage, secondhand, pre-loved wool clothing, and I don't think there's a problem with that, but I wouldn't support new wool production. And lastly, I want to talk about vegan leather. So vegan leather covers a very wide range of products, and one of the things that I often seen is that the worst types of non-animal based leather is marketed often as vegan leather, and you sort of get the sense that, oh, okay, so because something is vegan, it must be better for the environment as well, right? Not necessarily, because petroleum is technically vegan. So many types of vegan leathers are produced from petroleum-based materials, aka plastic. This is a type of leather that's often referred to as pleather, but that doesn't sound as great as vegan leather. This is of course a huge spectrum, so there are other types of vegan leather products out there that are more sustainable than pleather. We have apple skin leather, we have Pinetex, which is made from pineapple waste. My overall point is here that just because something is advertised as vegan doesn't necessarily make it more sustainable, and I can definitely see a lot of fast fashion is starting to pick up on the fact that the word vegan in clothing can sometimes help your product along in terms of its environmental profile. Vegan doesn't necessarily mean more ethically produced clothing or more sustainable clothing. So I would be cautious and simply check out what the material actually is before buying something that's labeled as vegan leather. And that was the most sustainable fabrics, and also some fabrics that can be sustainable but isn't always. Let me know if you want a part 2 where I go over the most unsustainable fabrics out there, and then we talk about those in the same sort of way. Other than that, let me know if you have any comments, any questions, and any video requests. I would love to hear you guys out. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!